Well, thank you, Daniel and Nancy, for leading us so beautifully in our time of prayer. We will be hearing from you both at the end. I do apologise for the technical interference at the beginning of your reading, Nancy. Such a shame, because it was, you read it beautifully for us. And apologies, a special apologies to those that listen through hearing aids, because I know that interference is amplified for you, and so apologies. But now I have the pleasure of introducing Janet. Janet is a member of the UK Oblate Council, and she has responsibilities for the formation of UK Oblates, and she's now been in that role for close on 12 months. And she's also a recent member of the International Oblate Council that Lawrence is and myself are now forming to guide our ever-growing oblate community that now stretches around the world. Over 25 countries we have a presence, and there's also signs that we're extending even further, and that's beautiful. We're not about numbers, of course, we're about sharing the wisdom of the monastic archetype and to be faithful to our commitment to the Benedictine values that we promised to during our final oblations. So welcome, Janet. And after Janet, we will have Karina from Uruguay, who will give a witness to her faith for us. So thank you, Janet. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for sharing this time together. One of the things that Eileen said before we all began was, Janet, all of you, don't forget to smile. But actually, I find myself smiling a lot when I come to these gallery gatherings, because it is just such a joy to see everyone. There could have been two reasons why I might have felt anxious about this talk. The first, because it's called an inspirational talk. Now, that can seem quite a pressure. When I spoke to Eileen about it, she said, well, there's another way of looking at that. Firstly, that this Benedict's well this Monday morning for all of us is inspirational. It's an inspirational setting, and each one of us is an inspiration. So I felt very comfortable about that. And I think the other reason why I may have felt anxious is because I'm not an academic, I'm not a theologian. I'm just me. And I'm me in my community. So why should I feel anxious? I'm in my community and I know that I am accepted as I am. So here I am, just as I am, with God's gaze upon me and within me, with God's gaze upon all of us, God's loving gaze. But the truth is, and it is a truth, a very important truth for me, that I am very ordinary. I'm a very ordinary, simple, plain person, seeking to live an oblate life in a simple way. But for so many years, probably most of my life, in fact, my life was very different. And perhaps you may recognize some of these traits or experiences that I will share. For lots of reasons, I was driven by the need for external recognition. And I was seen to achieve in the world of work. So much was expected of me, and I expected much of myself. But you know, I thrived on that success. I thrived on the position of power, eventually becoming director of a college, and then setting up a thriving business. I felt powerful, but I also felt stressed and overburdened, which is often the result of business success. It seems to come together. But for all of those years of standing on a bright stage, receiving accolades, extraordinarily, I found time to go on retreats. Of course, I took my work with me, hiding my laptop and piles of folders. Back in the day, it was paper. And sneaking it in to my little room to work, but somehow to experience something more. And during my times of retreat, there were just those nano tiny moments when I saw beyond to a place that I wasn't inhabiting, but a place that I wanted to inhabit. And as the stresses increased, I decided to spend a week of silence in a Benedictine community, a Benedictine monastery, where foolishly I went alone without support and had my first fearful encounter of my own awfulness, the impact that I was having on others, and the exposed truth of how I was living my life in this glamorous, very overindulged world of work. But it was the turning point, because I had felt God's gaze, gazing upon my life as it was, but it was a loving gaze. However loving it was, It was awesome and terrifying. For me, it was the dark night of the soul, the first of many. Coming face to face with the person that I had become. But what also came was a certainty that I was loved. I was loved as I was, in my own awfulness, but also my own awesomeness. Those of you that may have heard me talk before, I always share that sense of awesome and awful, that sense of being human, the ugly and the beautiful of the human condition. But I was able to say during those dark times, here I am as I am, and I am loved. And it was around about that time that I first was introduced to Geoffrey Barton. Some of you will know of him, a canon in the Anglican Church who became my spiritual companion. Geoffrey encouraged me to join a local meditation group, and I genuinely didn't think that I was qualified to join a meditation group. I thought that you somehow had to be someone wise and someone contemplative, that somehow you had to arrive at a certain place before you could join a meditation group. But Geoffrey assured me that all I had to do was turn up. And that is a saying that we've heard John Main say in his readings, just turn up. So began the work and the journey. Not through reading great theological texts, but through turning up to meditate and letting the silence and stillness do its work within. And it was only really from that place of meditation that I was drawn to wisdom texts, wisdom teaching. And I remember what I think is my first book. And that was, I hope Kim is here, it was Kim's book, Kim Nataraja, Dancing with Your Shadow. And I'm just going to read part of chapter 1, which may explain why I recall it so vividly as a powerful book for me. Meditation is a powerful discipline for integration and disintegration, and transformation. By turning inwards in silence and solitude, we retune the whole of our fragmented being, and moreover become aware of our link to ultimate reality. She goes on to say, achievement is a term of the ego and has no place here. The real end result is a spiritual gift, not psychic side effects, but compassion as a sign that real growth has taken place. And the word compassion struck me. It goes back to what Josie was saying last week, that she shared with us last week. The need for acceptance of self and love of self, not in an ego-driven way, but in knowing that God's gaze sees all, our flaws and our beauty. So if God's loving gaze is upon us, we are loved as we are. And so we are here to love others as they are, not judging others. St. Benedict makes it clear, no murmuring or grumbling. That's not easy. We know that's not easy. But in chapter 7, and it's the 7th step of humility, St. Benedict says, and this is a very hard 7th step, it's probably the most difficult one for us as oblates to embrace. He says that we not only admit with our tongues, but also convinced in our hearts that we are inferior to all and of less value, humbling ourselves. He says a lot more, but it gets worse, so I'll leave it at that. But who do we think we are that we can condemn and judge others? So with Geoffrey as my constant guide, I did become a little fixated on reading. Some of you may recognize that in yourself. You know, the desire for that next spiritual book to read that somebody has recommended. And our bookshelves can be full of half-read or well-thumbed books. But someone had suggested that I read Meister Eckhart. So I asked for one of Geoffrey for one of Meister Eckhart's writings. Geoffrey has an extensive library. He was very kind, and he said to me, perhaps not yet. 5 years later, Geoffrey gave me a writing from Meister Eckhart saying that perhaps I was now ready. Well, the truth is, I'm not sure that any of us are fully ready for Meister Eckhart, but I hang on some of his coattails, as it were, occasionally. But there is one important thing that I have learnt from Geoffrey. I had shared with him my concern about not being an academic or a theologian, and he strongly advised me against that particular route for me. He said, study can become a barrier. It is not about gathering knowledge, but listening with the ear of your heart. T.S. Eliot wrote in his quartet, we had the meaning, so different. We had the experience, but missed the meaning. Perhaps because we were too busy reading or thinking. I think I spent many, many years traveling a road, never ever seeing the beauty of that road because my head was full of work and planning and organizing and thinking. We had the experience but missed the meaning. So that quote is in my office and I read it frequently as a reminder. 20 years later, at the age of 92, Geoffrey wrote his first book. It is called Going Beyond. Essentially, going beyond words into a deep and contemplative space where all is revealed in the stillness and silence. It's a beautiful book of meditations of his journey towards deep contemplative silence. And for my own journey, I genuinely rejoice in being ordinary, keeping everything simple, not worrying about finding the clever words, learning constantly to just be present with others, recognizing myself as a flawed, utterly flawed human being. But it's rather like the fragility of an egg. It just depends how you hold it. You can hold it this way and it's very strong. You hold it this way and it breaks. So we are flawed, but that's okay. We're fragile, but that's okay. I will end with something from Father Lawrence. He wrote a little book, it's a very good little book, called The Ego, Our Spiritual Journey. He says, the way to wholeness is through our brokenness. The way to integration is through disintegration. The great symbol of this is the Eucharist. We break the bread at the Eucharist in order to create unity of the Eucharist. The bread we may share in the one bread and become one with each other. We are a community of love with compassion for each other. But first, we must learn to be self-compassionate, which means embracing our own brokenness. We are not perfect and we can never be perfect, but we can set out to live our lives in perfect harmony, to walk humbly alongside each other, our own gaze fixed on the other. So here I am, knowing that I am a beginner and will always be a beginner. I'm on the journey, and if I'm called to do whatever I can, it will be in a very ordinary, simple way, because I am enough as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. That was, as I had expected, simple yet very profound. I got two little quotes I want to offer. One I offered at last evening's US Cell meeting because I think for me, they capture a lot of about what you're sharing and what Karina's going to go on to share. The first one is that we are not put on this earth to see through one another, but to see one another through. And Thoreau said, could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? And thank you. On that point, I'll invite Karina. Karina, are you with us? Can you speak, Karina, so I can see you come to
Yes, I can speak. Good morning.
Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful to have you with us, Karina. What time is it for you?
It's 5, almost 6, 10 to 6.
Okay, well, what a wonderful smile you have to start this day with. So I'll leave it with you to share something of your spiritual journey with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. I'm awed by this, such a big gallery of people dedicated to their spiritual growth and to everyone's. Thank you very much for inviting me. Well, after Janet's wonderful words, it's a bit difficult, but perhaps being simple is the cue. I came to meditation about perhaps, I was counting last evening, I'm not sure, but a little bit less than 15 years ago. I was an executive. Well, I still am. I was very hardworking, always was, and also very focused on organizing on tasks and activity and achieving. I had my children were small; they were about 8 or 10 years old, and I was really very stressed. I was carrying this very heavy burden of responsibility and expected a lot of myself. I felt very much reflected by Janet's description. And of course, I was in stress. I had my back ached, everything ached. It was a reflection of what my life was being at the time. And someone recommended that I practiced yoga. And I came to this wonderful instructor who not only helped me with my aches, but also taught me how to meditate. And it was, I never returned from there. It was not just the meditation, but also, this experience, of course, that changed me, and which I couldn't put anywhere. I just couldn't understand what I was encountering. It was very difficult for me to integrate this mystery that I was experiencing with my view of the world, my current view of the world. And I had the blessing of coming to once talking about this with a priest friend who told me about this Benedictine monk who had come to our parish in Montevideo. I didn't know him, and I was not a churchgoer at the time, and lent me one of Father Lawrence's book, one of his books. This led me into a retreat, which I attended with my husband and another couple, a retreat in Argentina. And it was just such a gift to be able to integrate this experience of love and deep silence, this experience of being absolutely loved without any conditions, with my view of the world. Father Lawrence's theology was really illuminating, and it helped me put the pieces together. So I'm forever grateful for that. So it has meant, meditation for me has meant this this combination of the experience and the being able to integrate it into my mental frame, my view of the world. It took me back to this Christian tradition, to being a Catholic, which I had long forsaken. This experience of being loved by Jesus, which I know will never leave me. I became a completely different leader, more compassionate, more nurturing. I became an entirely different mother and wife. I was much more patient and understanding, being able to leave space for others and not trying to control everything and run everything perfectly. It was completely different. So my family is very grateful to Father Lawrence as well. I began sharing the gift as well. I went back to church, became a catechist. I meditate with children. I have meditated with children almost from the beginning, and it's one of the most beautiful things that I have experienced in my life. I became a group leader. I have a group that has been running at my house for many, many years. I also became an iconographer, which was a bit of a surprise because I always loved drawing, but it really meant nothing to me. But it came to have this very, very rich and transforming meaning for me. And of course, as many of us have probably experienced, there is this mixture, between the blessing and I wouldn't say perhaps not the pain, but there is some bitterness always mingled in not being able and in failing, some very frequently failing the discipline of being distracted, of having this being challenged by this need to find a contemplative way of life within an active stage, within a very active stage. I'm still executive director at a company, and being also a mother, very frequently failing, and in as many times having this feeling of being taken by the hand by Jesus, and knowing that I will fail once and again, and I will still be loved for trying at least. And I also carry in my heart this certainty that whatever happens, I will not lose this knowledge, this experience in my heart. And I know whether I sit down to meditate or not, and whether I am concentrated or not, I know Jesus's love is there for me all the time, whether I realize or whether I don't. And that will never leave me until the day I die. So what can I say? I feel immense gratitude. That's all. I think that's all I have to share. Thank you very much for listening.
Karina, your "that's all" was so much. There's such a strong message in there. And again, like Janet, you're saying that we are accepted as we are. Ours is for the trying. Ours is for the returning, and ours is for the accepting and the knowing that you are a beloved child of God, as we all are, and that you are a very valuable member of our community of love. So now we have our prayer leaders to close out this session, and then Julia will close us out altogether. So thank you, Karina. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you very much.
May the divine assistance remain always with us.
And with our absent brothers and sisters. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you very much indeed to everybody who has taken part this morning, to Daniel and Nancy for leading us in prayer, and for Janet and Karina. I'm sure you've touched an awful lot of hearts today. So thank you both very much indeed. And I've got to give a very big thank you to Alan Chone, who has been working so hard. We had a few I think very big technical problems this morning, and we weren't able to go live until I'm assured that the talks were recorded, and I do hope they were, because it would have been so sad if we had lost Janet's talk and Karina's beautiful sharing. So Alan, thank you very much indeed. that you managed to get us live. So anyway, and thank you all very much indeed for coming this morning. And I hope you have a blessed day, and we will see you all again. Oh, I've just had a message. The talks are recorded, so that that's a good thing. So thank you all very much indeed. God bless. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you to all.
Namaste.